distribution agreements. This is quite a tricky subject, and anyone launching a new product usually winds up having to go through this. And it's one of those areas that I would classify as the one where people can just toss buckets of money into a bottomless pit for no real return. I've seen too many clients spend tens of thousands on agreements that basically have been pretty well useless. Now, what happens is that essentially you decide that you need a distributor to distribute product, and we will go out and find distributors. You may find them, we may find them, to do the job and introduce them to the product with the information we have to get them fired up about distributing your product. Now, this is after having done some homework on who these people are, what sort of access they have in the marketplace, what their reach is in terms of effectively distributing, and whether they're held in some regard by the actual customers. Now, the distributor expresses a wish to get involved in distribution, and then usually you wind up with putting some sort of agreement in place. And this agreement will be usually for a set period of time with some sort of rights of renewal and some sort of performance requirement, where you're expecting someone to move a certain amount of product within a certain time, get their act together and get fired up and show some sort of enthusiasm, and hopefully they can do all the things they originally said they were going to do. It doesn't always work out that way. Now, you will quite commonly, or they will quite commonly, get involved in presenting some sort of agreement for this process to take place. And all too often, these agreements wind up things that are generated by people who may well come under the heading of just your normal company lawyer, the normal guy down the road, or second best friend, or whatever, who happens to be in the business, but does these sorts of things once every blue moon, if at all. And so we've had clients who've been sort of charged for these people going out and doing their research in how to put an agreement together. Now, and then turn around and bill the client for it. Now, for the research, that is. Now, there are legal practitioners who operate in this area who specialise in doing this sort of stuff. And they have any number of templates for any number of situations where they can lay their hands on these and give buckets of advice on what and how and why. Now, too often they're not involved in this sort of stuff. So we've sort of got involved, and I got involved in this particular area, basically because of all the sort of dramas that occur in getting these things in place and getting a sensible and a proper, meaningful agreement in place. In light of the fact that people have wound up getting a legal practitioner to do it who really aren't that experienced in this issue. And as a result, the agreement winds up somewhat flawed. Now, or not covering things that are relevant. So we have done quite a lot of homework and give quite a lot of advice. Very important right from the outset to say that we will, in many cases, generate a draft agreement, but we present it on the basis of a guide only. We're not going to get involved in legal fracas. We're not going to provide any guarantees of whatever at all. We're going to wash our hands of any responsibility here in terms of whatever, because we expect you then to take it to your normal business lawyer or whatever, second best buddy who's a lawyer or whatever, who probably doesn't do agreements that often, but can then wheedle through this and potentially get refine it a little bit further. In some cases not do a hell of a lot extra to it, but not get involved in having to sort of figure this right out from square one. So normally what happens is we sit down with the client and go through all these parameters that are involved in these agreements and try and get some sort of meaningful document that actually, in a common sense terms, does the job. That is, some sort of what we term rules of the game. Now look guys, we're going to get George or Nell involved in distributing these products, and we're going to set up some rules of the game, and we expect, and these rules would define who's going to do what happens if something goes wrong, well, who's going to do what there, what expectations on performance are there, what expectations on renewal are there. So we've got some sort of common sense purpose on both sides, and if something goes wrong, then we open the bottom drawer, pull it out and say, right, now what happens when this happens and who's supposed to do what? So you know what you're supposed to do, you know what the other guy's supposed to do. That's the purpose of the thing. It's not to enrich the legal profession. It's to actually get some sort of common sense set of rules. And so I'm going to go through some of the terms that are normally involved in agreements, and you can sort of get a feel for, whether we know what I'm on about, but to get a feel for the sorts of issues that are involved. There's quite a few. Let's start off with issues, not necessarily in order of importance. So we talk about the term of the agreement. How long is this agreement for? And what happens when you might decide you want to renew this agreement? And what happens when you may want to extend, that is, extend the terms of the agreement? What sort of territory is involved here? And we can speak for an hour or two on the issue of territories, because all sorts of business issues relating to territories. So what sort of territory does this cover? What sort of payment terms are involved here? As you sell, you ship a product to your distributor, and when is he supposed to pay for this stuff? What happens if he doesn't? The quality of the product. Again, we'll come back to that issue. Advertising. Who's supposed to be doing advertising here? Sales reporting. We've had many instances of this being sort of messed up, even though we've asked very clearly for sales reporting. Sales reporting is particularly useful. So your distributor actually lets you know within a reasonable time of what sort of sales that they're managing to enjoy. And so you can figure out, well, I need to produce a certain amount within a certain time so I can keep up a reasonable delivery schedule to my distributor so he doesn't run out of product. Now, when they turn around and don't tell you what they're selling, which is so often the case because they mightn't have a good system, and then at the last second want you to deliver a whole sort of several truckloads of stuff at sort of 1 minute to midnight. Very common situation.